In response to the many questions I get about what sort of gear I own or have tested and reviewed, I've decided to compile this accessories and gifts PDF, which I'll make available via the link below the movie. Now, I've divided this into small ticket items, i.e. More affordable items, and then of course the large or big ticket items, which are more expensive. Now obviously if these are going to be gifts, there might be gifts for yourself, or there might be gifts for your nearest and dearest, but it does give you an idea of some of the gear that I personally would recommend to my own friends. First off, let's go for one of the big ticket items. As a professional photographer, I often get asked by friends or family members, okay, so I want a camera that's better than my smartphone, what do you recommend? And of course, because smartphones are so good these days, it's a difficult suggestion, because I know it's going to cost them a reasonable amount of money to get quality or capabilities that is better than the average latest iPhone, for instance. So the first thing I would probably recommend is, I expect that most people who are not photographers will be looking for a camera that looks like the old compact cameras. And yes, this is a compact camera, but in an era where most compact cameras died at the hands of the smartphones, there are a couple that have survived the test of time, and one of these is the RX 100. We're up to the version 7 now. Now you will be able to buy older versions of this camera if you're looking to spend less money. I personally prefer the version 6 and 7 because these have the very long zoom lens. Now we have an equivalent, a full frame equivalent of 24 to 200 millimeters zoom on these. Yes, I know it's 1298 at B&H at the time of recording this movie, but really you need to make that jump to get quality that is much better than your typical latest generation iPhone. And of course what we have on these version 6 and 7 cameras is a lot of zoom capability, which we don't tend to find on the smartphones. So yes, you can get it in your jeans pocket if you wanted to, or even a clutch bag. So a lot of people will see this as a compact camera, but the quality that can be achieved by this camera is quite extraordinary. And what I would do is invite you to look at my RX 107 camera review, and I also support this camera with an ebook. So if you were recommending this to say a family member and they purchase this camera, you could download the ebook and give that to them as well to help support them, because the menu system is almost as full and complete as the latest generation alpha cameras. In fact, you should be able to help your family member because the menus do so closely resemble the later model alpha cameras. Now, normally if somebody was said that they want to get in and to the hobby of photography but they don't want to spend too much on their first camera, as a full frame camera user, you might be looking to recommend a full frame camera to them. Now, just until a couple of weeks ago, I would have said one of the bargain basement bargains to be had is the A7R2. And now that has the full frame backlit illuminated sensors, but just as I was preparing to make this video, it was listed as discontinued in the B&H store. This was coming in at just around about $1,100 to $1,200 in B&H, so it was an absolute steal. Now it's been discontinued. The A7R3, the next one up, is more than $1,000 more expensive, so that's a big gift if you were putting your hand in your own pocket to purchase this for someone. Now you might say, well, with the A7R2 gone, maybe I should just go for the lower A7 II model, the one that features the 24 megapixel sensor. Now it does retail for a very similar price of that A7R2 before it was discontinued, but I have reservations about recommending a full frame camera such as the Alpha 7 II. The autofocus capabilities are a little bit pedestrian on this. And it doesn't feature the backlit illuminated sensor which arrived with the A7R2, and so its autofocus is okay for slow moving subject matter, but you're not going to be photographing the kids kicking a soccer ball around in the back garden and expect to capture many images in sharp focus. So my recommendation for somebody who's looking to make photography their hobby, and you wanting to get them a decent camera with fast autofocus and the latest menus, etc., it would be the Alpha 6400. Now that's coming in at $12.98 US dollars from the B&H store. All of the prices I'm listing in this video tutorial are taken from September 2021. So the prices I'm giving are going to be approximate prices. Some of the prices I'm quoting are the discount prices, and they may not be on discount when you go to the store, but just gives you a rough idea of what prices some of these items are going to be. Now, if you were buying this as a gift for somebody and it didn't have a lens, obviously that's going to be like giving a Christmas toy to a child without the batteries, is you are going to want to buy a lens with this camera. Now, the 1650 kit lens is nothing to shout about, to be honest, and it doesn't have a huge zoom range, it just has a 3x zoom. So something that is much more useful and a much later zoom lens from Sony is the 18-135. It is an exceptionally sharp lens, and it does give you that 7.5x zoom capability. So it is a camera where somebody might have just that one lens until they really get bitten with the photography bug, and then maybe want to go and buy a longer telephoto zoom such as a 70-350 or maybe a wide aperture prime. But this is a great starting kit, and I would wholeheartedly recommend this, and I do recommend this to people who say they want to get into photography. And of course, I do support the camera with an extensive ebook as well. So again, if you were buying this for a family member, you could download the ebook and give the ebook with the camera. So one of the things that doesn't come in the box when you buy this camera or any of the Sony cameras is you don't get a memory card. So what I've done here is I've listed my personal preference. Now these are the more expensive memory cards. They're called the Sony Tough cards, and but I'm very much of the opinion you buy once, buy best. So you're not having to maybe buy a small card and then realize that it's not sufficient for maybe the summer holiday. So you really want a really quite decent capacity card, and one that is not going to malfunction after just a year or two. So these tough cards are built to be rugged, and I would recommend these personal ones. If you've downloaded the PDF and you want to quickly access the B&H store, just click on the product or the underlying name of the product and you will be taken to the B&H store. Now I do have an affiliate link with the B&H store, so I do get a little bit of a kickback for having made the recommendation. Now you don't need to purchase at B&H, just go to Amazon or go to eBay, but I just wanted to make that option for the B&H. And of course I can only recommend one store with one hyperlink, so I've chosen the B&H store in New York. They do ship overseas, but that might not be something that you want to get into. Oh, before I move on, I should just go back and say now you can just connect the camera to your computer to download the images, or even connect the camera to a smartphone, but a lot of people do want to eject the memory card and put it in a card reader. So I've put the two card readers that I personally recommend here. Now you don't want to buy a cheap card reader which is very slow. USB 3 is 10 times faster than USB 2, so you certainly don't want to be spending hours downloading your images. You want to make sure you've got a very fast card reader. Obviously the latest Sony cameras have a fast USB-C port, so you can just connect the camera to the computer if that is your preference. The other thing that I do recommend is you are going to want to back up your images if you're away on a vacation. You can't just keep all of your images on your laptop or on your tablet, and if that was to get stolen and you've lost all of your images, then that is going to be a bit sad. So you really want to be able to back up all of the work onto a second device. I also back up my hero files to Adobe's Creative Cloud via Lightroom CC as my third backup. These SanDisk external drives, they're very, very fast. So you can offload your images off your computer onto these drives in just a matter of minutes. Here I'm transferring 128 gigabyte of raw files in just 3 minutes and 40 seconds, or a 9.5 gigabyte movie file in just 9.5 seconds. These drives are so fast that you could have the images on the drive and be working or editing those images in Lightroom on your computer, and you're not going to run into any issues with a slow drive slowing down Lightroom. So these I definitely recommend. They're a little bit expensive. You are going to be paying hundreds of dollars, but and obviously if you're going on a very long vacation, you're going to go for the 2 terabyte rather than the 1 terabyte. But you should be able to get all of your backups onto one of these drives before you get back home and you offload them onto a much larger, maybe desktop drive. The other thing that I would recommend is for anybody who gets into photography in a big way, they are going to want an additional battery. I would prefer that Sony always throw in 2 batteries in the box rather than 1. So because when the battery goes flat, you don't want to down tools for a couple of hours while you're charging your battery. So you can charge the battery in the camera, of course, but if you've got 2 or 3 batteries on vacation, you want to maybe charge one in the camera and one in the battery charger. So because it does take quite a while to charge these batteries. If you're buying one of the older cameras that use the W series batteries, you really need more than 2 batteries. I would typically go on vacation with 3 or 4 of those W series batteries, and then the battery charger really becomes an important accessory that you need to own. Now, of course, if you're going on flights, the airlines are a little bit wary of batteries rattling around loose in your camera bag, so you really want to get some organizers to put those batteries in, such as the battery pouch here. I don't actually own this particular battery pouch. I just sampled one on the B&H store, but certainly have a look around those battery pouches. You probably get ones that take up to 4 batteries, so take a look at that. Some people who don't use a lot of flash photography but just want a flash for the just-in-case scenario, indoors, maybe at night, and you wanting to bounce the flash off the ceiling, or use fill flash on very sunny days where people's faces are in shade because of their hats or whatever, then the little HVL F28RM is the Sony's latest small flash unit. Now, when Sony moved into firing the flash via radio rather than infrared, you used to have to purchase a commander for using the other flashes off camera, whereas this tiny little F28RM flash can be the commander. You don't have to have the flash firing off. You can actually just control many off-camera flashes. So it only retails probably for quite a similar price to the commander, but it's much more flexible in that it can be a commander and it can also be a fill flash. So this is what I would recommend if you're not needing anything much larger. This is good for fill flash and lighting small groups indoors. If you're into doing some vlogging or shooting some selfies with you and your family, then of course there are a number of wireless options that make this easy with the latest model cameras. One of them is the wireless shooting grip. It attaches with no wires because it is a Bluetooth device, so you simply pair that with your camera and you can use it as a grip. You can walk with the camera, or you can just set it down on a table as a mini tabletop tripod. If you are doing that, you might want to use Sony's remote release. That's the RMT P1BT, BT for Bluetooth there, because obviously if you don't want to be rushing backwards and forwards from the camera, you just want to be able to start and stop movies or take photos using that remote release there. I think it's a great purchase personally. There's also a wireless microphone system. This is their new digital wireless microphone system that works on the newer Sony cameras. It works on the older ones as well. It will be an analog wireless microphone, but on the newer cameras such as the Alpha 7C, A7R4, A1 cameras, which have that digital multi-interface shoe, it is a brilliant little lapel microphone. This is great if you're doing an interview with one person and you want the best possible audio quality. Getting the microphone very close, clipping it to the shirt for instance, gives you the best possible audio quality, and any background sounds are much quieter because the microphone is so close to the person speaking. Now there is a slightly cheaper version. Rather than buying the Bluetooth grip and a separate remote commander, I recently looked at a product which has, it's very cleverly designed. It still operates as a Bluetooth grip, but the little control on the grip is detachable, so you can walk away from the grip being used now as a tabletop tripod. So you're basically buying one product instead of two products, and because it's not a Sony product being made in China, it does save you considerably. You're going to save more than $100 just by buying this. You may like the build quality of the Sony better, but this is just a cheaper alternative. One of the things that if you're working with an interchangeable lens camera and you're wanting to clean sensors, and this is a question I guess asked a lot, is what do you do to clean the sensor? First off, I'm very careful when I'm changing lenses. I wouldn't change a lens on a very windy day without turning my back to the wind and protecting the camera when I take the lens off, allowing dust to get in. But dust will eventually get onto that sensor, so at the end of each working day I remove the lens and I blow any dust that may be on the back of the lens off, and also blow out the sensor chamber with a rocket blaster. These come in three sizes. I'm listing the medium size now just because it's easier to fit into a small messenger bag. I think that if you blow out the sensor chamber at the end of each day, the dust is less likely to adhere to the surface of the sensor. So that means that you're less likely to need the two products on the right hand side of the screen. I'm very nervous about suggesting the one on the top there, which is the Sensor Clear 2. It does require that you touch the sensor. Now when you are needing to touch the sensor, you need to go into the sensor cleaning mode and don't switch the camera off, because what this does is, if you, after the camera cleaning process, the steady shot is disabled for a short while, so you can touch the sensor without the rocking the sensor in the steady shot cradle. Now if you were going to touch it with that Sensor Clear pen, I would only recommend this is if you're prepared to treat these as almost disposable items. If you ever fish out the Sensor Clear pen from your camera bag and the top has come off in the bag, I would throw this Sensor Clear pen away. I typically buy them in packs of 3, so that at the end of 6 months, and I'm not too sure whether this is absolutely clean anymore, I just discard them. If you're wanting something that is probably a little bit more gentle on the sensor, then you're looking at a little bit more money, and that's the eyelid gel stick, which is below. What you do with this is you find out where your dust spot is. If it's in the sky, in the top right hand corner of the sky, when you're looking at the images on the computer, it'll be in the bottom left hand corner of the sensor when you're looking for where that dust spot is. And what you'll do with the gel stick is just touch it, and then you take that gel stick and you put the dust that you've just collected off the sensor onto a little bit of sticky paper. It comes with lots of sheets of sticky paper which you, once you've used them a couple of times, again you discard them. So these are my recommendations. There are obviously wet cleaning options where you buy sensors, sensor swabs and cleaning fluid. I find that people who are getting into sensor cleaning for the very first time, they'll often find the sensor is dirtier than when they started, so it does take a little bit of a knack, and they're not cheap items, those sensor swabs and cleaning fluid. So my personal preference for recommending people cleaning the sensors for the first time is that iLead gel stick. The one designed for the Sony sensors is not blue, it's that pinky red, so just make sure you've got the one designed for the Sony sensors. Camera straps. I'm not a big fan of the straps that Sony put into the box. I've got numerous camera straps that I've never unwrapped. So what I prefer to use is these quick detach slides from Peak Design. They come in two widths, so this is the wider slide. It'll also come with lugs. I take off the little metal clips on the top camera strap mounting points. They just rattle around and the noise will often work its way onto your video recording. So I would remove those as well and replace them with the little Peak Design lugs there. These slide straps also often come with a little attachment point that you can put on the base of the camera if you prefer to move the strap mounting point to the base. So this also comes, if you're working with one of the smaller APS-C cameras, you can invest in the smaller Peak Design slide strap, which is called the Slide Lite. It's a little bit cheaper, but it still comes with all of the features. The great thing about using these slide straps over one shoulder rather than hanging it around your neck is if you lean over with the camera stays close to the body. It doesn't swing out and maybe hit a wall that you're standing close to. So it's a very secure way of carrying the camera, and it's very quick to lengthen and the strap if you need to, and then tighten it when you're just walking about with the camera. Now if I'm working just with a messenger bag and a small camera with small prime, I don't use the slides at all. I will use a wrist strap, or what Peak Design refer to as a cuff. These come in two different colors, the ash grey and the black, and I put links to both. Now in the picture on the left you see they put the attachment point to the top of the camera. This does get in the way of the fingers touching the custom keys, so I will attach the cuff strap to the base of the camera. And so the ways I can show you how I do this is to use these quick release plates on the bottom of the camera. Now if you're wanting a premium quality quick release plate, then I'm using a Leo Photo titanium. It is a little bit of a fancy item, but it would make a great gift if you're looking for something. It looks expensive when it's sitting in the box, and so it is great because it is quick detach, because the whole plate has this little D screw, so you don't need an Allen key or a coin to get this on and off. Just 3 or 4 turns and that quick release plate comes off. It is also an Arca Swiss plate, so the camera then is always ready to go onto an Arca Swiss tripod head at any time. And again, this speeds up a photographer's workflow. So if I found this and I opened this at Christmas, I would be pleasantly surprised to receive one of these as a gift. So this is why I'm really calling this as an accessories and a gifts, because it does give you some ideas about what you can buy a friend who's a photographer. Now a Peak Design also make these plates. And again, these will go onto Arca Swiss tripod heads. The Peak Design ones will also go into a Peak Design clip if this is of interest to you. So that clip you can put on a camera bag, or you can put it on your belt. And if you've got a camera with a small prime, rather than putting it back in the camera bag, you can just clip it to your belt or bag. So this is something that I will often do when I'm working with 2 cameras and I have the smaller of the 2 cameras with a small prime attached. I will often just clip it to to my belt. Now the Manfrotto, the standard Arca Swiss plate, you can switch that out for an Arca Swiss Plus Manfrotto. It's a dual plate, and so this camera will now attach to a Manfrotto tripod or an Arca Swiss tripod head. The one plate does both tasks. Now the downside of owning one of these plates compared to the Leo Photo that I just showed you is they don't come with these D-ring screws that you have to attach them with Allen keys, but you can convert them with D-ring screws. I put a link there to a couple of D-ring screws. You can convert these Peak Design plates so you can attach and detach them without using Allen keys. If you're not interested in that Peak Design clip that goes on your belt, Leo Photo also make these quick release plates. The model number there is NP-65, and of course Leo Photo have added that D-ring as part of the design, so that is quite clever. You'll also notice by looking at the image on the right there, Peak Design have a quick detached strap system. I don't use this Peak Design. Sorry, I use the Peak Design strap. I don't use the Leo Photo strap, but it looks like a great system if you constantly wanting to attach and detach the cameras from a strap. So it's a product that I might be reviewing in the future if Leo Photo prepared to send me one of these products. Okay, so the other thing that if you're using, say, the longer telephoto zooms, basically the white telephoto zooms, or even the 400G, 600 GM primes, is those lens feet, you have to attach a tripod mount to the bottom of those lens feet, where Leo Photo make lens feet that are also the Arca Swiss attachment points. So they're always ready to go on to maybe a monopod or a tripod if you need to use them. And of course you can see that those quick detach rings or holes inside these feet are also present on these items. So these three are possibly worth looking at, and again, this is something that I haven't used, but I'm thinking of acquiring one for the 400 GM, which I'm a new owner of. So this is really something that I'm interested in reviewing again in the short term. Now, if you're looking at tripods, I'm very big fan of the small tripods. I've done a couple of recent small tripod reviews, and one of the ones that I've mentioned is the Leo Photo MT-03. A couple of people online have said that these Leo Photo are copying Really Right Stuff. Well, that might be. Some of these do look a little bit similar, or a lot similar to the Really Right Stuff. The Really Right Stuff, I have to say, is a lot of money. It's a lot more expensive than these Leo Photo items. But these Leo Photo items are very well made, and so I have no problem recommending this. And yes, there is this small tripod in the Really Right Stuff range, but actually the Leo Photo has gone a step ahead of Really Right Stuff in having these leg extenders, which the equivalent in the Really Right Stuff don't have. So in some ways, yes, they look similar, but in some ways they're actually unique. So I wouldn't say they're direct copies of that Really Right Stuff. Now, I would like to have recommended the tripod, the MT-03, and the very small micro ball head, the MBC-18, as separate items, but I couldn't find them listed in America as separate items. It's easier to acquire them as a kit, where you get the tabletop tripod, the mini ball head, and that is the third item, the PC-9011, is an item where you can attach your mobile phone. Now, basically, just look at that as an extra, because buying the MBC and the MT-03 from the Leo Photo store directly is going to cost you more than buying all these three as a kit. Now, I didn't see them for sale on the B&H, so I've listed both Amazon and eBay in America as links to these items there. Now, I do say that I'm a big fan of these low tripods, and they don't just go on tabletops, because I will usually use all of these small tripods sitting on the ground. And so even if you do own one of the bigger tripods, I would always encourage you to carry one of these small tabletop tripods in the bag for when you couldn't be bothered to carry that very large heavy tripod with you. So I've listed 4 small tripods here. The one on the right is that wireless grip I've already recommended. I have used the Manfrotto Pixie tripods before now, but now that I've taken ownership of the MT-03, that Manfrotto doesn't see a lot of use anymore. And of course the tripod which I use, which takes a big payload, is that Leofoto LS-223C, C for carbon. Now the B&H store sell it as a kit with the LH-25 ball head, so that is one option. If you click on that tripod, you'll be taken over to order that particular item from the store there. But I've just recently updated my Ranger tripod to the LS-223CEX, which has that leveling base. This is obviously going to cost you a little bit more, and B&H don't throw in a ball head with the price for this one, so you are going to be looking at buying an LH-25 ball head separately. Or if you're just wanting to spend a little bit more money, take that up to the LH-30 head, which is probably a little bit more useful if you're going to do a lot of panoramic work and you just need that separate screw for making horizontal rotation without loosening the ball off entirely. So this is the one that I'll be shooting panoramas from now on with. And of course, with shooting the panoramas in vertical mode, you are probably want to go and look at another couple of items. I shoot panoramas in vertical mode because it gives me a lot of angle of view for the foreground and a little bit of extra sky. And of course I can shoot 3 with my 20mm lens and get the equivalent angle of view of 12 or 14 millimeters by doing this. If you're including a lot of foreground information like you see in this image, it's important to rotate the camera around the no parallax point, which is not the camera mount point. So you are going to need a couple of additional products if you wanting to shoot this panoramic work. First thing is to get a nodal slider. I've recommended the Really Right Stuff on the top. The Really Right Stuff is very well made, but it is extraordinarily expensive, I have to say. So I've recommended a second item. There is a Leofoto item, but it wasn't on the B&H store. So I've put that Sunway Photo, which is a cheaper version, down on the bottom there. Now I think the version that I'm using is a Niwa, but again that wasn't listed on the B&H. And by looking at that Sunway Photo one on the bottom there, I see that it doesn't have a bubble level. So and the Niwa that I purchased does have that bubble level, which possibly is something that I would spend a little bit of extra money to obtain. Now you can upgrade an older tripod that doesn't have a leveling base for a leveling base that goes on top of your tripod. Now Leofoto sell them in small, medium and large. These are the diameter sizes, so 60mm, 65 and 75mm versions there that you can purchase to add to an existing tripod. I decided to upgrade my Ranger tripod because I wanted maximum weight saving, and the integrated leveling base would just save me another 100 grams or so. The next thing you'll probably want is that L bracket or L plate, different descriptions. Now I've seen the small rig stuff. Leofoto also make these, but I'm recommending the small rig here just because there's more links to the B&H store. So I've listed the popular late model APS-C cameras, the Alpha 7C, the RX100. Some people find the RX100 too small, and so they want to beef it out with that bigger grip on the right hand side. Now all of these attach really quickly. That The one on the RX 107 there just attaches in just a couple of seconds. It really is just a one screw attachment to get these onto your camera. And then of course you can shoot these panoramas in vertical mode, because the L plate or bracket is an Arca Swiss design. Now, you may have seen my separate camera bag review. I reviewed the Pilot 7L and 10L, and now these are my bags of choice. For going out with a camera and 3 lenses, I will travel with the 7L. I can get 2 cameras and 2 lenses, as long as the lenses are not too large, in that 7L. If you're wanting to carry a little bit more gear, you will look at that 10L version. Take a look at my camera review to see what I can get in each of these bags. Now, at the moment, you have to order from the Wotan Craft store, but they do offer free shipping to America, and these bags are premium quality. Now, after I reviewed these bags, Chris from DP Review reviewed them, and he also found the 10L was his favorite bag in amongst the other bags that he tested. So it's not just me saying they're great. I think once you've seen the quality of these bags, you'll agree that they're very well made, and they do offer a lot of flexibility and versatility to extend the carrying capacity of these bags out. Let's move on to filters. A lot of people will ask me periodically through the year what filters I recommend. So what I'm recommending here is, if you're owning more than one lens with the same filter diameter, then I think having a quick swap magnetic filter system is the way to go. So you can see there I've listed the Sony lenses that all have the same 49mm thread. These are the small primes, the 24, the 40, the 50. Those are the 3 new micro G primes that Sony just released, but it's also the same filter thread as the older primes, such as the 20mm f2, the 35mm 2.8 ZA, that's a very small Zeiss design lens, the 55mm 1.8. Now, so if you had like 3 or 4 of these, you only need to buy 2 filters, and if you buy 2 filters, you'll get 2 rings, so you can quickly swap the filters between the magnetic filter rings. If you've got more than 2 lenses and you're only going to buy 2 filters, then you're going to want to buy some more magnetic rings, so you can put a magnetic ring on each of your lenses that you want to swap out to. You might also want to buy some spare lens caps as well. These are also magnetic. Just make your initial purchase, because you might find that you get 2 magnetic rings and a lens cap with your purchase of a filter. So just check the small print when you're making those purchases to make sure you don't over order. Now, these are all of the smaller primes that I was saying these 49mm filters will go on. The only small prime that I've recently listed is that Tamron 20, but that takes a 67mm filter, so that's the odd one out here. All of the rest will take those 49mm filters. If you were looking at maybe purchasing a lens for somebody who only owns zooms, but you want to treat them to a wide aperture prime, then perhaps the most affordable wide aperture prime that I can currently see in Sony's lineup is the 20mm f2. Now, if you're giving this to somebody who only use f4 zooms, they're going to have like a 2-stop advantage, so you might find that it opens up a whole new lease of photography, like this was captured handheld at night in a dark alleyway using that the f2 aperture. So going up in filter size, the primes that I mostly take out have a 67mm filter thread. Now, I don't own that Tamron 20mm f2.8, but I have listed it as carrying that 67mm filter thread. But my 20mm, the 35GM, the 85 1.8, and the Batis 2.8 135 all have that 67mm filter thread, and also the 2 new G zoom lenses for the APS-C camera cameras, the 16-55 and the 70-350, also have that 67mm filter thread. So this means that I have two filters that will go across half a dozen lenses, and so I don't have to buy filters or keep duplicating filters because I've got different filter threads. Now, some people who want to do more landscape work and want to use graduated filters and circular polarizing filters, the smallest NISI filter system that I'm really prepared to carry these days is the M75. There are larger 100mm and even larger 150mm filter kits, but they get quite heavy and quite large, and the M75 kit is quite small. I can imagine putting that into a messenger bag, whereas the others would be carried separately. So I've listed or given you a link to the full-on kit here that has two ND filters, a graduated ND filter, a circular polarizer. Yes, it's going to cost you more than $300, but it basically all comes in the one box there. And it's got a 67mm native thread there, but you can also buy step-up rings to come down if you're using a 62mm lens or a 55mm filter thread. You can step up to this 67mm filter system. This is not going to be appropriate for the bigger ultra-wide angle zooms such as the 16-35 GM, because that uses an 82mm filter thread, and you're going to need one of the bigger systems if you're going to go down that path. This is going to be more suitable for the 20mm prime, let's say. So let's go up. We're going up to 72mm. I do own a NISI 15mm f4 Sunstar that uses this filter thread, and it's also the filter thread used by the 1635 f4, the 50mm 1.2 GM, and the 70-200 f4. So I do carry not these magnetic filters in this instance. I've got some Hoya Pro ND filters left over from when I owned more of these filter diameter lenses. And then, but I do own the quick swap system for the 82mm filter thread, because the 1635, I think I've missed out a lens there. The 135 G Master also has that 82mm filter thread. Just check that. And we've got the 2470 GM as well, all using that 82mm filter thread. The Sony do try and standardize on their filter threads, but there's always the oddball thrown in there, such as the 1018 APS-C lens, which uses a 62mm filter thread. Okay, if you were going to look at a quick swap system, then you'd struggle to find another lens with that 62mm filter diameter. But one of the great things about some of the lenses I use is you can stack two ND filters without clipping the corners. Not possible on the 1635 GM, but possible, say, on the 20mm prime or the 1018 f4. Okay, so let's look at some oddballs again. 55mm. The Freewell don't make filters, so you'd have to step up if you were using them. So what filter companies would I recommend? I'd go either Hoya Pro ND, or I've given you a link here to the B+W filters. And you'll see that I'm constantly recommending an ND8 and an ND64. This is my first choice, and I can stack them to make a 9-stop ND. So that's an ND 512 or something like that, to give you much longer exposures. Some people will just prefer to carry that ND 500 or ND 1000 in a single filter. Now I don't use the variable ND filters because you're not going to get absolute quality compared to using fixed density ND filters. And all of the ND filters I'm recommending now don't have color casts when using them. You might skew the color slightly, but you're not going to end up with difficult to edit colors in post-production. Some people who came from Sony A-mount cameras or are going shopping online for second-hand lenses might find bargains in some old A-mount glass. There is some great A-mount glass out there made by and designed by Zeiss. So the latest and greatest lens adapter coming from the A-mount to the E-mount system is that LA-EA5 lens adapter. You are going to have to just check it's compatible, fully compatible with your camera. What tends to happen is it on different cameras it supports a larger range or a smaller range of old A-mount glass. If you're unlucky, you might find yourself with an autofocus lens that will only manually focus on this adapter. So just do your homework here before buying into this lens adapter. The other thing that it makes a great gift, or just a treat yourself, is if you don't do macro very often, but you always want that opportunity if the need arises, is just to buy some extension tubes which will make any lens basically a macro lens. Yes, you're not going to get the absolute quality that a macro lens would give you, but you do get that macro capability. They're typically sold in pairs, a 10mm and a 16mm, and you can stack them so you get even much more macro capability. So here's an example that I've used in an ebook where I've got this little USB drive in the shape of Mickey Mouse here, and in the top right hand corner you see how big Mickey is at the closest focusing distance of my 85mm 1.8. I put on the 10mm extension tube, and Mickey basically doubles in size, and put on the 16mm, and he's pretty much filling the frame. Put on both of them and he more than fills the frame on my 35mm camera. So looking at other unusual items that you may not have considered, for instance, this is one of my best-selling stock images. This is on a stock library, and a week rarely goes by without me making another couple of dollars by selling this image as stock, and it's sold hundreds and hundreds of times. And I'm actually shooting through a window on the 88th floor of the Eureka Skydeck here in Melbourne. Now the lights are on in the Skydeck behind me, and so all of those reflections would be in this image if it wasn't for the fact that I'm shielding that light. Now you can rig up something, but it is incredibly difficult to rig up a shroud to hide the reflections. So this very clever device called a LensSkirt just suckers onto the window, and you put your lens into the rear portal, just draw the drawstring, and then you're ready to start shooting. And so it's a very quick to set up. They come in two sizes, so if you're using one of the ultra wide angle lenses, say a 12-24, you probably advise to go for the extra large version, otherwise you'll be clipping the corners. You can just about get away with the standard version on the 1635 lens at 16mm, but again you'll find it just much easier buying the extra large. If you're just working with a 20mm prime, then the standard version would suffice. Again, looking at some of the accessories that some people may not think about is if you're buying a very high resolution camera, then you should be using a 4K screen, not a HD screen, so you can see as much of the quality of your high resolution camera in one go, rather than constantly zooming in and out in post-production software to see whether it's sharp. Much better just to lean forward on a 4K monitor to see whether it's sharp rather than zooming in. And I always recommend that to be able to show and have complete confidence that the colors that you're editing are absolutely faithful, rather than that your monitor is slightly skewed, i.e. out of calibration with a bad color cast, is always buy a color accurate monitor. And the ones that I recommend are these BenQ. There are slightly better monitors out there in the AZO range for fine art printers, but I think these ones for photographers are great. The BenQ SW271C and the 321C. That 321C is a 32-inch monitor, which is the one that I'm currently using. they're color accurate straight out of the box, and so you've got complete confidence as soon as you plug them in that what you see is what you get. And over time monitors can move, and so what I would recommend is you invest in a monitor calibration device. This one comes, the Data Color Spider comes in a little kit called the Photo Kit, and I would buy the Photo Kit if you're going down the data color path. There is another manufacturer I'll introduce you to, and this also has that spider checker on the right side there. This is especially recommended for people who want to make sure that the colors of the cameras are recording are accurate, because if you follow the directions you'll create a preset that makes sure that the colors on screen of your calibrated monitor are absolutely faithful to the colors you originally captured. Now the other brand that make these devices is X-Rite. Now I actually prefer the i1 display monitor calibrator that you see here, and the Color Passport creates a profile for your camera. Now this is great for RAW shooters, but a preset from the data color is better because it also includes presets that video users can use. But if you're not interested in video, I think I would go down the X-Rite Color Passport option to create a profile for the camera. So a couple of options there, just to ask me some questions if you're unsure about which way to go on that. And if I've got to the end and you're looking for a gift but I haven't covered the item that you might be thinking of, there is a gift card, of course, that you can give to a friend who's a photographer, and they come in a range of $20 to $1,000. Or you can use that link, click the browse the B&H store, and again I have an affiliate link with B&H, so again I will get a little kickback for having recommended you to the B&H store if you click on those links. Okay, so I haven't listed every item that I've discussed in this video tutorial, but I've listed most of them in this list with approximate prices. Okay, so those prices are what they were when I was making this video in September 2021, and so they will vary. So, and the big ticket items, of course, for the people you love most, or even if you're just looking for a gift to treat yourself because it's your birthday and you can't rely on anybody to buy you the perfect gift, you can just treat yourself. So here are all of the big ticket items that I've listed. So as I said, I will make this available as a PDF, so with live links you can click on, but hopefully if you're not going to click on any of the links, it's just giving you a couple of ideas about some of the products that I use outside of the normal range of products that I typically talk about when doing reviews. So hopefully this is useful and will still be useful in 6 months' time when you're looking for another gift for your nearest and dearest. Okay, cheers. Thanks for bearing with me.